Testing. 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 Testing.
Well, you can say a lot. You can squeeze it in. But if you choose not to, that's okay too. Just when it's better to turn them in sooner rather than later so they know how many people there are.
I'm an old school teacher. I can talk forever. Isn't this a palindrome? Forward and backward, same thing.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Maybe they'll look at you. Okay.
And it is 10 o'clock, so I say we start this meeting. If we're all set to go, I'd ask that you put your phones on silent. And everybody, welcome to the September 19th meeting of Hewlett. With that, we've called the meeting to order. I'm Supervisor Wasserman. To my left is Supervisor Simidian. Before we do public comment, Don, could you just start us off by introducing yourself and your position, and we'll go this way?
Yes, thank you. Good morning. Don Rocha, Director of Parks and Recreation.
Good morning. Joe Zintek, Director of the Consumer and Environmental Protection Agency.
Good morning. Jacqueline Anshano, Director of Planning and Development.
Steve Mitra, Assistant County Counsel.
Thank you. Thank you all. Item number 2 is public comment, where you have the opportunity to speak about anything not on today's agenda. And we ask if you wish to speak that you fill out a card here, and the cards, Madam Clerk, are here in the front this time, Peggy? Correct? That's okay. They're here in the front rather than in the back. Okay. Thank you. And if you fill out a card and you wish to speak, just deposit them in the containers and we will recognize you. And item number 2, as I said, public comment about anything not on today's agenda. I've got half a dozen cards here. And Supervisor, I think our rule is, I'm forgetting if we're at 3 minutes or 2 minutes. Maybe it's 5 or more. It's 2 minutes, I believe. 2 minutes. Thank you, Mr. Mitra. And I've got 2, 4, 6, 7. So it's 2 minutes each. I'll call your name. Please come on up in whatever order you get there is fine. Dr. Neha Bahar Nahawandian. Did I come close? Correct. Wonderful. Thank you. Dan Pruacina, Fabrico Linardi. And then Peter Rapp and Jason Wang. Or Wang, I can't, that's an A, I think. And you'll have up to 2 minutes each. The microphone is built into the podium there. Just come right on forward. Come right this way, sir. And to your right. Right there. Yep, it's built in. You can just start talking, and your time will start. Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm Dr. Nihavandian, OBGYN man, 90 years old. I have cancer, and I bought this land. I'm out of breath. I want to let my daughter Bahar talk for me.
Thank you. And Peggy, we'll start that timer at 2 minutes for the daughter.
Hello, my name is Bahar Nehawandian. My parents own a property in Coyote Valley, Morgan Hill area, and I'm actually here to inform you of, basically I'm here for 2 reasons. To inform you that the code enforcement has been basically bullying, harassing landowners in that area since the beginning of this year. We've been getting exuberant, ridiculous fines, which I don't know how they're coming up with, by the way, ranging from $1,000 to $40,000, depending on what they feel. My parents started getting letters in March, April timeframe stating that they're out of code for having a storage container on this agricultural land where he keeps farming equipment, etc. Obviously, in 2 minutes or less, I can't explain to you that we cannot survive on farming alone any longer. So as property owners, we need to be able to partially rent the land to offset the cost of cutting the weeds and attending to it, the costs, the cost it takes for the property taxes, etc. So that's my first point. My second point is we need to figure out a solution to this and possibly coming up with a zoning change for the agricultural area. I know there may be some kind of political agenda behind it with the whole Greenbelt area. However, we need to figure out a solution and work together proactively to find a solution. Thank you for your time, and I just want to let you know we also vote and we also pay our taxes. So that is what I want you guys to share with you today.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next.
Hi, my name's Dan Perusina. We've been farming in the South Valley since '68. We've quit farming. The rentals have gone, there's no rentals really out there except for maybe hay people. We've got to pay a high property tax. You don't make any money renting the hay or even renting for farming. You guys had come in years ago with this bit about you had all these people that wanted to come farm in our area. We never seen them because you paid a bunch of money to a lady to come in and do a study for you that they could make it like Napa. And now the county's coming in and telling us that, oh, you've got help houses here. You're only allowed 2 houses on the property with the green ag area put in. Well, they've been there for 40 years. How can they all of a sudden they be illegal? He's coming in telling people that we can't find permits on your property, on your buildings and stuff, so you've got to redo a permit. And all it is just a bunch of harassment about what you can and can't have. We've got to get rid of containers. We've got areas that aren't farmable. We've got trucks parked on them, which helps the city and the county out because they're not parking out on the street because there's nowhere for these guys to go. And we need you guys to put some kind of change in to make it more applicable for us to be able to make some money with our property and still be able to keep parts in farming. And you're going to find a lot of areas out there that don't even have water for guys to come in and farm it. The only thing they're good for is going to be raising hay. And at, $50 to $75 an acre, you're not making any money to pay your taxes with. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Fabrizio Lunardi. I own a property on Coyote Valley called Coyote Valley Hay Farm. I bought the property 2 years ago with the intent of doing agricultural business there. After I purchased the property, I brought some farm equipment, materials to my property, and I start to do the operations there. And I start to receive visitors from the county, code enforcement, saying that my containers and my vehicles could not be parked in my property, all sorts of things, including I put some base rock for us to drive inside of the property because a very difficult thing to do when it was raining in the winter. We got trucks stuck there all the time, so we put some base rock, and I got violation for that. And since so, I'm having a hard time with the county, trying to figure out how I can run my business. I stock and I buy and sell hay from local producers. It has been a challenge for me to keep my business running in the county because it seems that every step that I take, they come and they cut me off. I said, you have to take your containers out of the property, but you cannot put your containers in any other place of Santa Clara County because it's not allowed. You have to move away from our jurisdiction. I said, well, that makes it very difficult for me because I use this to put farm equipment, farm material, my grains, my product to sell as a storage. That's what I keep my family, that's my way of living. And it has been closed doors everywhere. I have been to the county several times, and I never get a definite answer. I read the whole code trying to see where shipping containers are not allowed in the property, and I couldn't find anywhere. And I went to talk to them, and it seems they are also confused with all the regulation. I want to express my point here, and I'm also a voter, and I pay taxes in the county.
Thank you.
Good morning, Soups. I've been in this building before. You recognized our family for many years of foster care that we performed for the county. Today, it's 30 years. My wife is an attorney. She donates almost all her time. She works pro bono for foster parents, handling educational issues, all the foster care issues, adoptive issues, etc. The other morning, we woke up. We had 13 vehicles on our street, 3 sheriff's vehicles, 4 animal control. We had county council, we had code enforcement, 3 of those. We had zoning, we had planning, we had building, we had environmental health, and we even had vector control. And what they were after, they had gotten a warrant, and this they called a raid. And I had never seen a raid before. I don't know if you know that. You guys perform raids. Your enforcement division performs raids on properties. And our sin was that we had people living in trailers on our property. My daughter, her husband, and 2 grandchildren live in 2 trailers because we could not get permits to construct a granny unit on our property. Why not? Because the property that we bought had old chicken coops on it, which were too large, and so we were in violation of a code. And anytime you have a violation, you cannot get a permit. We finally got everything cleared up. We thought we were ready to go. and we go in with the chance at building something, and they say, sorry, you first got to go through environmental health and get your septic system redone before you do anything else. And so my daughter, son-in-law, after 4 years, they just moved up to Portland, Oregon. They left us. So now I have 4 county children in my home and a wife with Alzheimer's, and you decide to descend on me with a raid. I find 3 other neighbors immediately, one adjacent, one across the street, one just down the street. Each one of them had the same kind of raid on their property.
Thank you. You're Mr. Rapp?
Yes.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you. Oh, I'm being fined between $35,000 and $44,000 per day until violations are corrected.
Thank you. And for all the speakers here, we have the Director of Planning and Development who's hearing all of this, taking whatever notes, talking with her staff, directing her staff. So although we can't respond, because public comment is not a time when we can respond, it's not an agendized item, I wanted you all to know you're being heard, notes are being taken, and there'll be subsequent action. Please go ahead.
My name is Jason Wang. I think I'm also one of the neighbor. We have almost 200 to 300 neighbors have similar problem. And I'm new to this country. 5, 6 years ago, we were planning to do farming in the Coyote Valley. And then we couldn't find any tenants, so we rented for free to a nonprofit organization. And they come in and then they squat in one of our house. They don't pay any rent. They use all the electricity, everything. And then we have to pay thousands of dollars for them to the attorney to ask them to leave. And then until now, the land is still empty. And then we have another greenhouse, 140,000 square feet, maybe one of the biggest greenhouse in the Coyote Valley. For many years, we tried to rent, and in the end, we rent to 3 families. And we didn't know what they were doing. And then about 3 months later, there's a raid. Actually, they were growing, 2 of them were growing marijuana. And then the county come in, they damage everything, and we asked for compensation. We didn't get anything. They say because they're doing something illegal, and we don't know about I don't even know what is marijuana. So the building now, the greenhouse is all empty. We couldn't find anybody to rent the space. And then we rented some space for people parking, and then the county enforcement coming about half a year ago, start fining everybody, start fining us for $3,000 to $8,000 per violation. And we understand the county want to keep this place nice and clean as a greenbelt, but we are property owner. If county do this with the open space, that's fine. But we, as a property owner, we have the right we have to make income to pay the tax to make a living. So hope that county, I have a petition letter. We have 130 people.
You can leave it right there. The clerk will pick it up.
Okay.
That concludes the speaker cards that we have for public comment. We now move on to item number 3, which is approval of the consent calendar. Today's agenda includes items 9 through 16, currently on consent. Supervisor Simitian?
Happy to move approval of the consent calendar as contained in our published agenda.
Thank you. So motion made and second to approve items 9 through 16. Is there anyone here that wishes to speak on any of the items under 9 through 16? Seeing none, those items are approved unanimously, 2-0. Thank you. We now move on to item number 4, which is to receive a report from our Department of Planning and Development. Jacqueline, we'll turn to you or to Rob.
Thank you. Rob Eastwood, our director, the manager for the Planning Division, and Charu will present on this item. Thank you.
Hi, good morning, supervisors. Rob Eastwood, Planning Manager, here with Charu Alawala from our department. Will be a brief report. I know we've been before you a few times on this item. The report back you have is from, I believe, 2 months ago regarding the Stanford San Juan historic study and district. 3 things you had asked to come back on that we have in your report. One was some questions on the geographic extent of the San Juan area in the historic study. We have identified that some of the buildings in that area are more recently built, the condos. And so as part of the historic study, We're proposing not to evaluate those buildings, but the older buildings. However, the overall review of the San Juan district would look at as-built conditions and the density of that district. You had also asked for an update on the historic survey. Was pleased to report that we have started to outreach to historic consultants. We expect to send out a bid within the next month, and ideally we'll have a historic consultant retained by the county to start that work soon. Finally, with respect to an advisory committee, there were some questions regarding the scope of a standing advisory committee versus an advisory committee that advises this process. Again, we're advising and prepared to assemble a group of advisory committee representatives for this process, which would include leaseholders, Stanford staff, other stakeholders in this area to advise us during the San Juan neighborhood preparation process. You had asked about a standing committee, and it's our advice that we wait until the end of this process to see if one of the options available for a standing committee makes sense. And that standing committee could consist of something like San Martin Planning Advisory Committee, which is a board-created committee in a Brown Act body that makes advisory recommendations, or it could be something more of a community resource group meeting that just shares information. But again, our advice was to go through this process first, come back, and at the end of this process decide if a standing committee makes sense. With that, I'll conclude my staff report. We do know you received a letter from Stanford that asks some questions, and we're available to answer any follow-up you have after you've read that letter.
Thank you very much. And before I turn to Supervisor Simidian, I have a few speaker cards. All right with you if we hear from them first?
Please do.
Thank you. Anyone wishing to speak on this item, again, fill out a speaker card, bring it forth here. The cards I currently have: Jessica Von Bork, Blair Hawksby, and Christy Holloway. Come on up. You'll each have a couple of minutes. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Chair Wasserman and Vice Chair Simidian. Stanford greatly values our faculty neighborhoods and cares about compatibility and design. We also believe that finding appropriate opportunities for additional faculty housing is an important goal for the university. We spent time listening to our community, and what we have been hearing is that the primary concerns are about process and the equity by which design standards are applied. We feel historic surveys are not the solution to addressing these primary concerns. So to that end, the university has hired a consultant to work with Stanford and our community to redraft our design standards, as well as develop a process that works for all. Our goal is to initiate this work next week. Regarding the action items before you today, we support staff's recommendation to only identify a time-limited advisory committee. However, Stanford encourages you to direct staff to initiate a public outreach process with the San Juan Residential District, as we mentioned in our letter, prior to the committee's appointment, as well as any surveys or studies being initiated, in order to fully understand what the community's concerns collectively are. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning.
As a homeowner in the San Juan Residential District, I'm deeply grateful to the Hewlett Committee and the county staff for all of the work that you've put into this sustainability master plan. And I fully support the proposals to undertake a historic survey of the San Juan Residential District, to create an advisory committee, and eventually to rethink zoning and development standards to bring those in line with existing neighborhoods. However, I wish to sound two notes of warning. The first is that the conditions of approval currently maintain a loophole that would allow 20 new units in the San Juan district before any of these steps can be taken, and despite the fact that elsewhere the conditions of approval say there should be no development in that area. The language at issue reads, "In a district where no proposed distribution is identified, the maximum number of units allowed to be redistributed is 20. I ask that that language be stricken from conditions of approval. My second warning is that it's important when creating an advisory committee to keep in mind the fundamental asymmetries of power that exist in our unusual situation at Stanford. If it is staffed with both leaseholders from the San Juan Residential District and Stanford University staff, it's important to remember that the university staff are full-time employees who are paid to defend the interests of the university and have powerful backing from lots of assistants, et cetera, et cetera. And on the other hand, the leaseholders are trying to carve out a small amount of time from their jobs otherwise, and will also be in the difficult position of possibly opposing the interests of their employer and landlord. So I think it's important to think about those inherent asymmetries of power if you really want this advisory committee to represent the voices of the leaseholders as well. Thank you.
Thank you. And again, final call for any speakers on this item.
Christy Holloway, and I'm a residential leaseholder at Stanford, and I have been working with the Stanford Homeowners Association during this process. We are extremely pleased with the recommendations that the staff is putting forth, and for doing a historical inventory, followed by revisiting the zoning with that information in hand and with citizen input. This is extremely important to us. We hope that the time-limited advisory group will be set up so that it is in place when the historic consultant is selected, because we believe there are a lot of resources within the community that can be extremely helpful to that historic inventory and perhaps make it a much easier process. A lot of work has been done. The Standing Advisory Committee, we also are very much in favor of to give citizens an ongoing voice in development as it takes place in the future of our neighborhoods. I do think the San Martin model is better than the CRG model, to be honest with you, having sat on the CRG after the last GUP. But I think the mission should be broader. It should not just be focused on historic resources, but look at the whole development picture within the community. I think the mission and the composition of that standing advisory is extremely important. I understand that Stanford is asking for outreach, and I think that's a great idea. I hope the outreach will be controlled by the county. The other thing is, as what Blair said, we want that language stricken from the conditions of approval that has to do with adding the units. Thank you.
Thank you. And that concludes the speaker cards I have for this item. So we'll close the public speaking portion of that. Supervisor Simitian.
Thank you. I've got some comments, some questions, and then a motion.
Thank you. I would also like to ask if staff has any response to anything they heard, that they let us know that as well.
My first question was, does staff have any response to anything they heard from the public as well? So you've anticipated.
It's a good idea.
It is a good idea.
Nothing additional to add. If you need clarity or response to anything, we're more than available to answer.
Supervisor Wasserman, I will just say, since the issue was raised, while it's a separate but related issue, the 20-unit issue in the San Juan district is an issue that I'm certainly aware of, mindful of, talking with my own staff about, and have spoken with the planning department staff about as well. I don't want to say more than that, because we're not here to do GUP business today, which I'm sure is something we can all be thankful for. But I did want to just say it's been noted, and it's part of the thinking that's going on even as we speak. I think we've got, I guess, at least three different things going on here. They're all related, but they are distinct. One is the issue of survey/study, and I guess I will ask the staff. Sometimes we use the word historic survey, and sometimes we use the words historic study. Is there any difference between the two? Are there terms of art there I should be sensitive to or mindful of, or are we just being a little more colloquial when we say historic study?
I think I'm not a historian by nature. In our mind, from a planning standpoint, it's generally the same.
Okay. Then here's what I'd like to say. I'm prepared to move the staff recommendation with a couple of clarifications as we go forward. On the historic survey/study, I think there's a way, if not quite to find common ground, to take the what I consider to be sort of the legitimate points raised by all, and that is to say, I don't think we want to, quote, wait to do the historic survey until there's been outreach, but I do think that there needs to be outreach from day one once the survey study is underway. So I think we just need to sort of build that in, not as a, let's get your input at the end of that exercise, rather let's get your input at the front end of that exercise. And that may not satisfy all, but I think that's the sensible way to go. And part of the reason that I'm going to ask for that refinement is I don't want to further delay. I understand, the argument that some are making that, we need to be careful we don't rush this essentially on the community without fully engaging the community. But my recollection, and planning staff can correct me if my recollection is wrong, is that this issue of the survey was sort of part of the larger discussion, was something, Mr. Chairman, that we referred to this committee, gosh, I think in January of this year, and then it came to this committee, I think, in March of this year. It's now September of this year, and as I look at the staff report, it says that it's going to take 4 months to do an RFP to get a consultant and 6 to 9 months to actually complete the survey. So, I have no problem with any of that. If anything, I'll be pleased if we can make it work. But my point is just, I think that it's hard. Anyone would be hard pressed to say 1.5 years to 2 years is rushing the process or failing to give adequate opportunity for community engagement. That being said, the concern's been expressed, and I think the way we can best address it is to say, let's make sure that as we're taking that 3 or 4 months to go through the RFP process, that we're thinking about, all right, how can we make sure that on day one we have the community outreach so that we don't have someone out doing a survey in an atmosphere where there's either unnecessary concern or simply misinformation floating about the community. Next point, minor, forgive me, but this is what happens when you have a district supervisor. The MAPS, plural, seems to have the right designation for Peter Coots, but we have a typo in our document. A couple of places, it's called Peter Courts Hill, and it's Peter Coots Hill. So we just need to check that, and the only reason I mention it is so that it doesn't get perpetuated in planning documents 20 years from now when hopefully someone else will be doing this work. Then as to the advisory committees, my motion is going to be that we go ahead with the temporary committee, but that we not take any formal action on a standing advisory committee, Mr. Chairman, except to ask staff to sort of continue to consider that proposition once they've completed these studies. I think we know that human nature is when there's something current and bubbling, people are engaged and are, stepping up to participate. When things go quiet for a while, it's harder to maintain that level of engagement. That's just, not surprising. So I think rather than try and figure out what that might look like or what the need might be when we get through with the exercise, I think we'd be better off to sort of keep it on our to-do list, be mindful of it, but keep working our way through with an ad hoc advisory committee. And here, Mr. Chairman, I want to, in the motion again, formally direct, I do not want the ad hoc committee to be a place where votes are taken. I have no idea if this is going to be a 5-member committee, a 25-member committee, but I think if our goal is really to listen to folks who have a range of views, if we turn it into a contest about who can outvote whom on any given issue, 6 to 5, 13 to 12, then that's not going to really be helpful. And in fact, it's going to be a challenge because people are going to sort of overly politicize the process, and they're going to show up in these chambers and say, now don't you dare overrule our advisory committee. We've actually managed to have we had an ad hoc committee on a totally different issue recently, which was to review consultants for our criminal justice oversight. We had 5 different applicants. We said, let's make sure that the community hears from them and shares their views. We had a very good system that allowed us to collect feedback from, I think roughly a dozen community members, but without anybody ever taking a vote or ranking folks. So, Mr. Chairman, I want to explicitly ask that this committee not have votes, that we find a way to capture what people, and, you know, hey, look, if there are 11 people in the room, sometimes one person's right. You know, it's just the fact that they, you know, aren't able to persuade their colleagues in real time. I know whenever I've been on the short end of the vote, I always walk out thinking, gee, I was right. So, you know, that'll happen. But I think let's do the advisory one now. Let's make it advisory so that we really are seeking out their thinking, their best thinking, but not turn it into a voting body or a recommending body per se. And then let's keep the Standing Advisory Committee in mind, but not move forward on that yet since we don't know what that would look like. I will say, and I'm going to be explicit on this, and if planning staff wants to push back, please do. I don't know how large this group is, this advisory group, but I will say I think it should have no more than 2 people who are official representatives of the university. And I'm putting that in the motion. 2 people is plenty to be there to express whatever the official university position might be. And if one of them is on vacation or homesick, the other one can be there. You know, I think it's totally appropriate, in fact, necessary to make sure that those views from the institution are represented as in part of the process. But to the point that was made earlier, this is really more about engaging the thinking of the neighbors who are the 850 plus households in that area. So that would be part of the motion as well. And then, let's see. That means we've got the study moving forward, clarification on the proposed scope and role of the advisory committee, and then the timeline for the survey and the recommended zoning amendments is one that I can support and do support and would incorporate in the motion. And short answer is thank you again to staff for following up on our prior direction. So I'm going to move the recommended action consistent with, and we have to forward this, Mr. Chairman, to our Board of Supervisors so that they take the action there. So just so folks here understand, this will come back to our full board. But I'd like to ask that we send it with a favorable recommendation.
That's because we're only advisory.
There you go. And people laugh, but that's true. We are only advisory. So move the staff recommendation with the clarifications and amendments that have been articulated. Staff think they've got a good handle on that. I'm guessing you don't want me to go through that again. I know the chair doesn't.
Very clear.
Good. All right. Then that's my motion, Mr. Chairman, if you're prepared to second it.
Thank you all. Just a couple of comments
Please.
I'd like to add on to it. I agree the committee should not be 25 people, and I'm sure you agree and are headed that way too. I'm okay with the no more than 2 members from the Stanford organization itself. I understand that. I think on the other side, as far as being fair, the committee then should not be 20 people, where 2 out of 20 are representing a different side. In my office, we say no matter how thin you make a pancake, there's always 2 sides. And so I think some number, and I don't know, Supervisor, if that ends up being 11 or 13 or whatever the number is, but I'm supporting the motion that you made and relying on staff to come back with a number as far as that goes. When the speaker, Jessica, was here up speaking about an item and they're initiating their own study, I just want to say from the dais that we welcome that study to come in as additional information, additional perspective, to come in as part of the information gathering process. I know the individuals from the residential area that I met with recently also have volunteers and people and data that they want to submit. I believe it's volume number 7. Anyway, information that's come in from all sources. I just want to say here that the county is open to any and all information coming our way so that we can make the most informed, comprehensive, complete decision ultimately, whatever that may be. And other than that, I agree with your motion and I second it.
And
yes, Mr. Eastwood.
Mr. Chairman, before we go to staff, I just did want to say, because I think it's important to get it out into the record, and I will take yes for an answer, by the way, and say thank you as well. But I do think it's important for folks, you know, if there has been some anxiety about the notion of a survey, I think it's important for people to understand the survey is just that. It's a survey. That's all it is. To your point, it's more knowledge. It's more information. It's a better understanding. I would hope that was something everybody could be for, including the university. That being said, before anything actually ever happens with the survey, you have to have the survey. Then there has to be, if someone wants to turn this into a historic resource inventory or county landmark issue, that someone has to initiate a proceeding. That's a second step. Then there has to be an evaluation on a particular piece of property. Then it has to be acted upon by the Historical Heritage Commission, and then it would have to be acted on by the Board of Supervisors. So my point here is, not only are we not rushing, it's 1.5 to 2 years long just to get us to a completed survey, but all the survey does is provide us with some fuller understanding, and it's the first part of what would have to be a 5-part process before any action was actually taken. And then my recollection is that at least one of these 2 designations requires the actual consent of the property owner. So I just think everybody should take a deep breath and look forward to the survey results. Thank you again.
Thank you. That concludes item number 4. We now move on to item number 5.
And I apologize, Mr. Chairman, but I just want to make sure that we didn't cut staff off because I was the one who interrupted. So
Please.
Sorry, just clarification question. I just want to make sure I didn't hear you wanted to report back on the advisory committee itself. We have your advice. We were going to go forward and move forward and assemble that committee and start the work. But I just want to make sure I didn't miss that there was a request to come back on the actual composition of the committee.
I don't think there was a request.
Nope.
Okay.
Thank you. With that, we move on to item number 5, receive report from the Department of Planning and Development relating to the use of recreational vehicles as housing for agricultural employees in certain rural agricultural zoning districts. And Jacqueline, I think we turn to you, I would think. Yes, we do. Turn to you on that item. And again, anybody wishing to speak on this item, please fill out a yellow card. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm going to turn to Valerie Negretti, Rob Eastwood, and Michael Meehan. They're going to present on this item.
Thank you. Welcome.
Yes, good morning. You can hear me. Yes, good morning. Valerie Negretti, Associate Planner with the Planning Department. With me, joining me is Michael Meehan, our Senior Planner and Ag Program Manager for our County Ag Program, excuse me. We're here before you this morning as a follow-up item from our June Hewlett memo, which was related to the use of potential pilot program for the use of RVs as an accessory dwelling units, as an accessory dwelling unit. At that particular meeting, the committee wanted staff to come back with additional information regarding owner occupancy restriction requirements for ADU units, as well as the potential use of RVs as ag employee housing in certain agricultural settings. So first, as it relates to the owner occupancy requirements, currently the department does require a deed restriction of owner occupancy for either the primary or the second unit on a property. And in 2016, the department, as part of the housing element implementation, the department looked at removal of this requirement in order to ensure affordability. And at that time, when the department explored this option, we found that the practice was still of value. And at that time, the county didn't move forward with removal of this requirement. However, as outlined in the Hewlett memo, there are a few assembly bills before the House and Senate that actually seek to remove this requirement. And specifically as recent of yesterday, at least two of the three of them that have passed both the House and Senate are at the governor's desk for signature. 2 of those actually seek to remove the requirement of an agency to require an owner occupancy deed restriction for at least a period of 5 years. And just really quickly, I'll kind of run over some of the highlights of at least one of the heavier bills. SB 13 looks at removal of a local agency's ability to remove the owner occupancy requirement for a period of 5 years. It also would restrict an agency for requiring off-street parking as it relates to the construction of an ADU unit. And it also would make ADU applications approvable within 60 days, so a short time clock on that. It would also seek to limit impact fees collected in sort of a tiering system and limiting how much we can collect, an agency could collect in impact fees for those. And it also would potentially delay code enforcement of ADUs if it's not related to health and safety for a period of 5 years. Similarly, AB 881 also does have a provision for the owner occupancy restriction removal for a period of 5 years. And it also requires a ministerial approval, of ADUs. And then it also seeks to, if a public agency doesn't have water or sewer connection, that an agency reach out to the local providers before we issue, an agency issues any ADU permits. And that's also mirrored in AB 68 as well. So at this time, I will now hand it over to Michael Meehan, who will report on our agricultural housing pilot program.
Good morning. Michael Meehan. At the June 20th Hewlett meeting, the committee asked staff to look into creative approaches to affordable housing in agricultural settings, specifically the use of a single RV, looking to the county's zoning ordinance provision for temporary residences during house construction as a precedent. As part of our effort to streamline small-scale agricultural employee housing resulting from implementation of the Santa Clara Valley Agricultural Plan, we'll be bringing proposed zoning ordinance amendments before the Planning Commission on October 24th, and likely before the board in November. Included in this streamlining proposal is a pilot program which, under strict circumstances, would allow a property owner the ability to use a single RV or mobile tiny home in agricultural areas for agricultural employee housing. As with the precedent of the existing provision in our zoning ordinance for temporary residences during house construction, property owners would be required to directly connect the RV or tiny home to approved water and wastewater systems and provide a $5,000 deposit to ensure timely removal of the unit from the property. We are proposing that no unit be occupied for more than 3 years under this pilot. In order to qualify for the pilot program, occupants must be engaged in an on-site agricultural operation and verified as such. We're proposing that the pilot for now be limited to 25 properties in order to closely monitor the outcome and the impacts of the program. And we believe this would provide a new option for agricultural housing that is both temporary and affordable and requiring minimal permanent investments on the property. Again, this proposed pilot is in addition to our proposed amendments to streamline the development of permanent small-scale agricultural employee housing. Finally, the Department of Planning and Development has been pursuing grant funding through SB2 to facilitate the development of large-scale permanent agricultural employee housing. That concludes this presentation. We're available for questions, of course, and we expect there'll be further opportunity to discuss in more detail these proposals after they have gone before the Planning Commission next month. Thank you.
Thank you. I do have some comments, but I'll defer to our speakers first. Trina, come on forward. There you are. Anybody else wishing to speak on this item? All righty.
Hi, Trina Heinzer with the San Martin Neighborhood Alliance. First, I just want to say that we strongly support the agriculture RV. One of the things that we're asking, however, is that you look at potential setbacks and also putting an acreage minimum, or excuse me, like 20 acres or something like that, if you could just entertain that. The other comment that I'd like to make has to do with the accessory dwelling units and owner occupancy. As a resident of San Martin for probably the last 20 years, I personally have observed the changes in the rural residential area, and it's significantly due to the fact that there is not enforcement on the owner occupancy. It's sad to hear that, at state level, they are possibly going to remove that entirely, but it is something that possibly you could look at putting other type of code enforcement or some type of regulations on those that are renting, because presently there are many single-family dwelling homeowners who are now significantly impacted by what would be considered apartment complexes. We have a number of people, anywhere between 15 and 20 individuals, on single-family wells as well as single-family septic systems. And it's a huge problem. I know code enforcement is doing a great deal to try and rectify issues, but specifically in the unincorporated South County, there's a lot of issues with that. So I just wanted to point that out and bring that up. And again, we do support the one RV on the ag proposal that they've presented. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Final call? Seeing none, we'll close the public comment portion. Supervisor, I have some comments, but I'll defer to you if you have any you wish to make first.
I have some comments and requests, but either way.
Go right ahead.
Thank you. First, thank you. That's we made a request. The pilot is responsive to a request that I specifically made, and I think it's very responsive, so thank you. I do have some questions and suggestions, and let me walk through a couple of those. And let me preface that by saying I understand that, you know, we have a primary responsibility for public health, safety, and welfare, and I understand that good planners want to plan well, but I'm also of the view that if we're going to do a pilot project, you know, let's try and make it successful, and I'm going to start with the $5,000. Telling somebody, hi, we're here to make your housing situation easier, and by the way, if you want to roll an RV in, we hope that'll provide you with some assistance, but we want to collect $5,000, which we would only then use, as I understand it, if there was a problem later on and if they wouldn't actually remove the RV, which I'm hoping is going to be a minority of the cases unless we've got some data to the contrary. So what I'd like to know is there any reason that if you got board direction, you couldn't just cut that number dramatically?
The number of the amount of the
$5,000.
security deposit.
Yeah.
Yeah, that number came from the existing program for temporary houses, temporary residences during house construction.
And if it's less heartburn for the department, if you wanted to just make the number, I'm going to make up a number, $2,500, because that's half as burdensome as $5,000. And if you want that to just apply to the pilot project so that you didn't have to go back and deal with the other stuff, I'd like to give that a try and see if that causes us any real problems. Because for everybody who's trying to decide whether they're going to participate in a pilot project, they're asking themselves, do I want to throw $5,000 down on the table just to get started in the conversation? And that's not, even for a large operator, it's not an inconsequential amount of money. So that's the first issue. Second issue is, I heard the specific requirement that the person or persons who are going to be there are going to have to be engaged in some kind of supportive activity for the agriculture. I think there was a reference to on-site agricultural operations. But my understanding, and I don't have the depth of connection that you do, Supervisor Wasserman, obviously, in the more agricultural parts of our county, is that part of what people are looking for is just some security of having somebody on the property at night. They may not formally be a watchman or watch person or whatever the term is, but essentially, you know, if you've got some acreage that's kind of remote in terms of other folks' presence, you know, you're worried that somebody's going to come and strip the metals from your operation or vandalize the property, and so you're just looking for somebody to be there on the premises overnight. And so I guess I'm asking is, does a night watchman qualify or somebody? I mean, you know, there are lots of jobs where people's primary responsibility is to just be present overnight at the plant, at the facility, you know, on the premises to make as a security matter. So what would we say if somebody said, you know, I work at the farm 5 miles down the road, but I come back here at night and my job is to be here every night to make sure that nobody's ripping us off? Would that qualify?
Under the current proposal, that wouldn't qualify. And part of the reason why we ask that the occupants be agricultural employees is to avoid abuse. In particular, we want to ensure if we have a limited number of these during the pilot, we want to ensure that the most vulnerable population, or the population most in need of housing in the agricultural areas, be housed through this pilot. And the other piece that I would add is that we're really looking to solve a temporary solution. Because we're not proposing that these RVs sit on the land permanently, my suggestion would be that if there's a permanent need for a caretaker on a property, that permanent housing be constructed. And as part of the streamlining of agricultural employee housing, there are a number of other options we believe that would be possible. Of course, they're not as...
Yeah. I'm going to tell you, I think that's an impracticable solution. And just, and the word is not impractical, it is impracticable, which literally means not capable of being performed. Telling somebody you have to put a stick-built structure in an area where, by the way, we're being pressed constantly to preserve the rural character and to not develop real housing, quote unquote, telling somebody you have to build a $500,000 structure on there in order to accommodate having somebody on the premises to watch over it, I just don't think that is a doable, practicable solution. So I'm saying that, you know what, as far as I'm concerned, if somebody had a single wide or an RV and they wanted to throw it up on their 20 acres and make sure that they weren't getting ripped off every night, I'd be okay with that. Now, do I want a family of 6 there with 4 kids? I do not. So if you wanted to put some limits around how many people were there, who was there, those kinds of protections would appeal to me more. But I'm pushing back strongly on the notion, because my next question is, you know, are these water and sewer hookups really practicable as well? Because the whole point is we're out in rural areas where there may or may not be access, and I never know whether the planners want me to call it potable water or potable water, but I'll defer to you on that. But you know, do we really have access to sewer and water? That's why many of these RVs have their own self-contained systems.
Joe, Supervisor, I'm going to let Joe, would you comment on that? Our understanding is that we required in working with environmental health, the sewer hookups. If I'm mistaken by that, we have had collaboration with environmental health. I would either ask Joe or Michael Ballier to speak to that.
And before they do, Mr. Chairman, I would just point out that when we had a homeless shelter in Sunnyvale for 4 months, we had a portable system there because we threw our portable buildings up in a site where we didn't have the ability to have those hookups, and we used a exterior system. And you know, if we can make it work for 125 people on a single site, you know, if there are a couple of folks who are in an RV or a single wide, I got to believe there's a way to make this work. And again, I get that everybody's trying to be, you know, on it about public health, safety, and welfare, but you know what everybody's really saying to us when they come and talk to us is, you people, and that's never a good start to a conversation, you people on the Board of Supervisors tell us you support ag, but then you make it really hard for us to do ag. So I'm trying to make it a little bit easier in this very small way with this idea of a pilot project. And again, I know I'm nitpicking you to death here. Thank you again for bringing it, because you did what the committee asked you to do, but I want to make sure that the thing really is workable if we go forward. And if we have too big a price of entry at $5,000 a pop, and if we sort of are too rigid about saying, no, you actually have to be working from, you know, morning till dusk on the site, and then we say, and you have to have hookups that are really urban hookups and that you're not going to find on a rural piece of property, then we're setting ourselves up to fail, and I don't want to do that.
Before Michael Ballier speaks, may I ask one clarification, please? So your concern is that relative to the person on site, that they could work on in another farm and be a caretaker, or another ag operation and be a caretaker on that site, or they're not related to ag at all and they're just living on the site as a caretaker?
Could be that Hank is a mechanic at a nearby business, and he goes and works at that business every day from 8 until 5. And at the end of the day, he not only gets a little extra money, but he gets a roof over his head if he, in a high-cost housing environment, if he'll be the sort of on-site watchman and caretaker for the 20 acres that somebody in a rural area wants to keep in ag, but can't keep in ag absent, somebody on site. That's my, I mean, I know I'm spinning imaginary hypotheticals, but, we're in this what-if proposition. And I should just say, by the way, for the planners, in my former life as a state legislator, I represented 2/3 of the nation's Brussels sprouts at one point. So I do have some experience with these, ag housing issues. And in fact, in my former life, played a role in developing farm labor housing on the San Mateo County coast side. So that's, if you're wondering where is all this coming from, it's coming from that history.
Thank you. Let's hear from Michael Ballier.
Yeah, thank you, Michael Ballier, Director for the Department of Environmental Health. I think the short answer to Supervisor Simitian's question is, in general, the state housing codes do require a sewer and a water connection because we consider that a basic human need. The fact that the unit itself is fully self-contained, I think, just lends itself to a temporary occupancy. So in other words, the tanks have to be emptied and filled in some way, shape, or form on a pretty regular basis, depending on how it's being utilized or how many people are in it. But with that said, I think the idea of this, and Rob can correct me if I'm wrong, is that it will actually be co-located on a property that already has a house, hence already has some either septic capacity or water capacity.
I may have missed that, but that was not my understanding of a limitation associated with the pilot project.
That's right. And yeah, we would, as Michael alluded to earlier, the idea was to actually allow these on vacant agricultural lands. And the point was to allow someone to come on site and support those agricultural operations.
So I'll just ask the question then. If I were to hop in a car and drive down to South County to enjoy District 1 a little bit.
You'd have a wonderful day.
I would, and then, and no one would ask about Stanford land use matters. But we'd have, if I had 100 parcels, how big are the parcels? Median.
Well, we don't have that data before you. We know out of the ag plan in our county, the
Give me a
lots
ballpark.
they're smaller lots. I'd say between, Michael can add 10 to 40 acres is the average.
Okay, so if I went out and found 100 10 to 40 acre parcels, how many of them are going to have water and sewer hookups that they could satisfy with this requirement? Because if the answer is 99%, I'll stop badgering you. If the answer is 0, then I'm going to say it doesn't sound like a very practicable pilot project.
And when he's saying sewer, he means leach field.
I mean whatever it is you think is required to,
Yes.
to meet your code definition, because I'm trying to figure out if this is a pilot that's got a real chance of working.
So we, again, today under our codes, that what we look to is if you want to build a house, we give you a provision where you can bring out an RV and you can put it on site for a number of years, and we do require you hook up to septic and water, and as Michael said, for health purposes. We don't want them using unsanitary. And that's the origin. You would have to do investment into putting in a septic system and getting access to water. I just say if we were to look at not requiring those, it would take a harder look on making sure how it's sanitary or not. So I don't think we have an answer if that could work or not. Knowing it's temporary, I'd say from the county standpoint, and I'd say actually knowing if there's a bond and a way to make it go away is important, because we do have a lot of code enforcement issues where something temporary was granted and it becomes a legacy issue, and getting people out of housing is a very difficult thing, So we would just want to make sure they're in a safe condition, and that if it's not needed, there is a mechanism to remove the RV.
I take your point. My last point in response, and then I'm going to let the chair get a word in edgewise here, is it's not only difficult to get them out of housing, it's really difficult to get them into housing. And if it weren't, we wouldn't be having this conversation. So, we've had this tension at a larger level when we talked about providing homeless opportunities for folks who are homeless. And, on the one end of the continuum, we've got folks who say, look, we're a government agency, we've got a responsibility to do this right. At the other end of the continuum, we've got people saying, hey, What part of people are sleeping outdoors along the creek did you not notice? And don't you think that good enough might be better than not a damn thing? And I think they've got a point. So back to this issue, again, I don't want to create a public health safety or, well, I totally understand that, but you know what? This isn't the suburbs. This isn't an urban environment. There is both a real need in terms of workforce and a real need in terms of affordable housing opportunities. And if we can find a way to connect the two and have a win-win, I would like us to do it. So before there's a motion, I will turn to the chair and see if we can.
Sylvia.
Supervisor Sumitian, we deeply appreciate your enthusiasm for this pilot, and we are taking under advisement all your suggestions relative to ensuring success, and we will go back and review every opportunity to make sure that we have really robust ability to pilot this effort. And thank you very much.
Thank you. I was liking that on the one hand, the other hand, and
you caught me.
The Brussels sprouts.
You got me.
Yeah. Okay, so I've got a number of different comments here. I'm just going to read off. Please take notes. Come back as appropriate with whatever suggestions are. When we had our speaker mention setbacks and acreage, I agree with the setbacks portion as far as one property and the other. When you're talking about, as far as acreage goes, when you're talking about 5 acre, 10 acre, 20, 30, 40 acre, and an RV, I'm not so concerned about the acreage size. But as long as you implement a reasonable setback, it's not going to have an adverse effect, especially privacy, on anybody else next door, impact in some way as far as noise. So Trina, I want to thank you for making that comment coming forward. And I would like to see setbacks of some sort. But again, you talk 50 feet in a rural parcel. I appreciate my vice chair here from the Palo Alto area when they're talking about small parcels, talking about 10 to 40 acres. And I know how relevant that is to many of your communities. So it's on 10 to 40 acres, if you have the 50-foot setback, I'm just making up a number, that should certainly give privacy, not visibility, screening, whatever. That should be pretty easy to meet. I am right there with Supervisor Sumitian. The increasing ag housing is why we are here and discussing this opportunity. And I know in the few times when I leave my home, when my daughter comes and stays at my house, simply to have lights on, I think that's a discouragement for somebody else to, and they see activity, somebody else to come and cause some kind of trouble. So when you have a person staying on your property in a remote area, I think you are less likely to have people up to no good that might choose to go to that place. So call it a, what did we say? Not a security guard, but a presence, a caretaker. Okay, whether or not it's official or unofficial, whether or not they get $20 a month to be a caretaker, money changing hands. I don't want government to get into that kind of detail. What I want us to do, and we're very much headed that direction, is to increase the amount of affordable ag housing, especially for those people that work on site, not to have to commute, to come home, to be there. I think we're headed in that right direction. Going down my list here. So I talked about setbacks I'm in favor of, acreage I'm not too concerned about. Allowing the person to stay in that RV regardless of their occupation, okay, I'm okay with. Them being there, a presence on the property. I think the reality is that the owners of the ranches, the farms or whatever, if they can have their foreman, if they can have one of their people that work there, live there, that's a real perk. I think you'll find most of the people living there will be working there. I'm not overly concerned about that. I too am in favor of dropping the 5,000 down to 2,500 so that's not prohibitive in some way, because I know along with the 2,500 is also the requirement in some manner to attach to an approved sanitary system. So even if you're put an RV next to a home and attach the same leach field, that $2,500 number will become one of the smaller factors involved in connecting an RV to drinkable water and a healthy sewer system, that kind of thing. So wherever we can help save costs. Rob, I heard you mention, or Michael, perhaps it was you, the 25 properties limitation. That concerns me a bit because I think you might right away have 50, 60 people of different sizes come forward. And I don't want to say the first 50 that apply. I don't want to say no to somebody and yes to somebody else when we're all in the same boat that we're trying to increase affordable housing for ag community, okay, is what we're trying to do. So I'm opposed to that limit. I think it's a pilot program. We do what we can. We tweak it. We improve it. And then you come back at some point. You mentioned 3 years. The other part about 3 years, as a property management landlord person, somebody makes an investment in something. For instance, when Pizza Hut wanted to move into the shopping center, they didn't want just 3 years because they had capital investment. I don't know what an RV costs. I don't know if a person buys an RV, puts it on the property, be part of this pilot program, hooks up to a sanitary waste system of some sort, provides drinkable water, to then say, okay, 3 years, we may say, no, this isn't going to work. That seems like a lot of investment at risk for a 3-year term. That concerns me. I would look more at a 5-year term. It's going to take time for people to apply, understand the instructions, create the water connection, create the waste connection. Has the 3 years started from that minute, or does it start from the day we grant occupancy? I don't know what, but I would suggest a longer term than 3 years to encourage people to actually buy an RV and amortize their investment, if no other word, over time to get that back. And thank you for the update on the Senate and Assembly bills. I was aware, as far as the one Senate bill, I was not aware of the one Assembly bill, excuse me, I was aware of the one Senate bill, not aware of the 2 Assembly bills. I thank you for that and their status and update. It sounds to me the state is moving forward on a statewide basis to permit and allow and increase the opportunity and ease and restrictions of increasing ag housing in one manner or another. And I'm glad to see Santa Clara County ahead of the state as usual. And I look forward to your coming back and our implementing a pilot program. We had individuals speak earlier under item number 2, talking about residences that they had and opportunities. I know many farmers who would love to get an RV out there and have somebody that works on their farm, specifically a foreman, but to have people work on their farm, be able to live in those. And I don't want to say, yes, you can, but after you buy the RV, it'll cost you $10,000 in deposit and access and connection and everything else. And by the way, in 3 years, we'll let you know if this is going to continue or not. That covers it for me. Any question? Jacqueline, Rob, anybody? Michael? No, please.
I find myself in agreement with pretty much everything I heard from Supervisor Wasserman as well. I think we're on the much the same page. The one area, Supervisor Wasserman, where I think there's an understandable and healthy tension probably is in terms of the numbers of folks who might participate in a pilot. And here's the one issue I am prepared, given the exhortation and assurances from Ms. Gallegos, to let staff wrestle with a little bit and come back on, is if we have, and you weren't suggesting this, but if we had a limitless number, if we said we could have 1,000 of these as opposed to 25 on the pilot project, then I know our staff is going to go off and say, now we have to be really tight about what the rules are. If I'm asking the staff to be a little more flexible about the rules and about sort of creating a little more opportunity, realistic chance that this will work for people, I'm trying to get them to be a little more expansive, and I'm worried that they're going to be tighter about rules, not more creative about rules, if it's going to apply to a lot of folks. I'm not sure I was very clear about what it was I was trying to communicate. Ms. Anshano, did that?
That made sense. I do want to say one thing, though. When we were directed by this committee, we were directed to go look at ag employee housing. We'll look at the definition to be more inclusive of the foreman, the caretaker, and we'll go back and look at that, as Sylvia Gallego said. We'll go back and reanalyze who we're defining relative to ag employee housing and where they need to be. I am understanding you, Supervisor Smithian, relative to the number. And so we'll go back and run some data also to see how many lots do we actually have that might be a candidate. We don't know. But we'll go back and run that data. And when we come back to you, we'll have more certainty. And we'll definitely consider all the comments that you've made.
Supervisor Wasserman, can we, however, because I thought I heard you say, can we just tell staff clearly so that they know there's one thing, we'd like the $5,000 fee to be cut in half?
Okay.
That's one of several things that I think we expressed to them. I'm going to add on to what you said, and I appreciate certainly and understand 1,000, even 100 coming forward would be problematic as far as managing oversight and everything else. I think the idea that she brought up as far as coming back with what is likely number would apply, maybe, for instance, 50 would cover what you find.
Yeah.
Okay, whatever that may be, that's fine. And I guess, Supervisor Simitian, maybe what I'm having a problem with now, especially with the Senate bill and the 2 Assembly bills, excuse me, what I'm having a problem with is, but I guess it's the best way to kick this off, is calling this a pilot. Maybe what we should be doing is looking at changing policy, period, and enabling this use. Although I think it's more prudent that we go out with a pilot, come back with feedback from that pilot, so that we can then define a policy change and not need as many changes after that. So I'll say let's go ahead with the pilot program, and I will also say I hope the pilot program leads ultimately to a policy change at the county that will enable us to increase ag housing. And I'll close on that. That was a good sentence.
May I ask one other question?
Yes.
So it's clear that the direction is for us to reduce that $5,000 fee. Would you allow us to go back and just do the analysis of what it would take if we need to remove one of the units off of the property, what that fee would be? Because what happens for us right now is we have this restitution fund that when we can't get compliance, we come back to the board and we say we'd like to use portions of the restitution fund to assist people where they may have need in compliance. Can we come back to you clearly understanding you want that fee reduced and give you a number that is based on, we're not going to be cost recovery, but is more based on a realistic, it might be less than 2,500. We just don't know.
I've got a response to that.
My response is, I'm always pro-knowledge. I don't want us to do this without knowing what real costs are. But the point I was trying to make earlier is, I don't know what the number of, I mean, if you're going to come with that number, then I think we also need to know what's the number of people, what's the percentage of people who are going to stiff us and leave us in that position. Because to Supervisor Wasserman's earlier point, let's say we had 100 of these, if we had a larger number. Well, if we're charging 100 people $5,000 is the price of entry because one of them is going to stiff us, that means we have burdened the other 99 with a $5,000 deposit requirement because of the one person who's going to stiff us. And I don't want to do that. What I'd rather do in that case is say, let's just charge them $2,500. If it means we have to eat $2,500 when that one person stiffs us, hey, then we'll do that in the interest of creating opportunity for the other 99. Okay. Now, if it's 99 out of 100 stiff us, different story, fair enough. But if we're going to have the conversation about, well, what are the real costs, then I think we also have to have the conversation about how often is that likely to be the case, because we're putting the burden on 100% of the people, including the good actors who are going to follow all the rules. That's my pitch.
Thank you. Mr. Mitra, question for you. If some neighbor complains about another neighbor, they've got an illegal dwelling, we send out code enforcement, we find an illegal dwelling, in fact, on the property, unpermitted, unsanitary, whatever, just not allowed. We don't have any recourse to go and take that dwelling or to knock it down. We put a lien, I assume, on property taxes. We start a clock going on fines. Is that correct?
There is a process that code enforcement follows, including red tagging and other aspects to it. Maybe I'll let Director Antonio explain.
The reason I'm bringing this up is if we allow a person to bring an RV property on, sign a deal, 3 years, 3 years, whatever it is. It says, when they sign that this RV may have to be removed for whatever reason. If they don't, I'm trying to think what the $5,000 proposed is for. Is it for us to red tag the RV because it's not allowed? And at that point, then, we take legal action, and ultimately, we put a lien on their property taxes?
So I'm gonna start, and then Rob is going to finish.
Sure.
The requirement for the $5,000 is really why Michael said it was carried over. We allow people to bring in temporary housing during the time that they're constructing their home. So that unit is on the property for a period of time, knowing that once the house is complete, and they know this is part of their permit, that they're going to remove that unit off of the site. The $5,000 is used for, Rob?
We'd have to look back. I think you can't do much with 5,000, so I think it's mostly to get their attention and make sure that they have a deposit with us and they know they have to come back in.
Thank you. What my point is at that point, it would be an unpermitted dwelling on unpermitted RV, not any different than a red-tagged unpermitted structure. And whatever remedy we have currently for unpermitted structures, we would have on the unpermitted RV.
Yeah.
So I don't know why any dollar amount at all
would be
when I think about it that way.
Yeah, maybe that's the case, if I may. That might be the case. We may, because this is a pilot program and we want to have an incentive to supply ag housing, when we come back, we may say no fee, because that's an incentive for people to actually put them on the property, but we may not. So because we still know that we want them to come off, the $2,500 we can see, but let us come back to clearly understand what the money's used for. As Rob said, it's an incentive for them to know you have $5,000 that you're coming back and you're getting back as you remove this unit, because it is a temporary unit in the sense of when the houses are being built. It's not that you just received 2 units on the property and you're building the one. But in this case, let's take a look at it. Because,
Okay, I just want to be able to justify
yeah.
what we're charging it for.
And there is a process. We don't just go in and take properties. There is a process that we notify the applicants when they're in violation. We try to work with them to come into compliance. So it's not where we're putting a lien on right away. We're trying to work with applicants.
But I'm just saying, that's an unpermitted structure. If there was an unpermitted structure that we red tagged, we would have some process we would go through. And I'm just saying, if a person at some point was told, you can't have that RV there, then we have a process already in place as an unpermitted structure. So that's why I was questioning the fee. But please, come back to us with that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Supervisor Wasserman, just a quick addition to that is that, we have those, when somebody goes and finds code enforcement violations, there is an administrative fine process.
Yes.
This $5,000 sets up an expectation that it will be reused for removal and targeted at removal. But the administrative fine process is separate, and as you noted, does exist.
Yep. Thank you. All right. I think we move on to 6.
Please.
Just had
Yes.
process question. We were prepared to take your feedback, work on the ordinance, and it would go through a process where it goes to the Planning Commission and Board. Was there an expectation to come back to Hewlett prior to that?
I think on this one, Mr. Chairman,
I think we both agree, yes, please bring it back.
There was, okay, thank
Yep.
you.
Thank you very much. That concludes 5. We'll move on to 6. Susan Gilbert Miller, come on down. And as always, anybody wishing to speak on this item, please fill out a card. I don't have any speaker cards for this item.
Good morning, Chairman Wasserman, Supervisor Simidian, and members of the committee. Susan Gilbert Miller, Director, Office of Sustainability. Joining me today from Facilities and Fleet. Susanna Mercado, who's the Sustainability Program Manager. You're asked today to receive the report relating to progress on the Sustainability Master Plan and notable updates on the environmental stewardship goals and associated programs. In addition to what's presented in the September report, I'm pleased to note that the Office of Sustainability, with assistance from Ramey and Associates, is completing our one-on-one Sustainability Master Plan interviews with county departments and offices, and we've started to compile our findings. Throughout this process, we've learned from our colleagues about the significant work that they are already doing to protect our environment, advance social equity, and improve economic stability, the 3 pillars of county sustainability. In turn, we have briefed them about the county's Sustainability Master Plan and the management system efforts, and have offered them another lens through which to view their activities and resulting impacts. In the coming months, we plan to solicit departmental and board staff feedback prior to bringing our findings and recommendations to this committee for your consideration. Additionally, other notable work not included in the September report, where the Office of Sustainability provided significant leadership or support, includes, in response to a referral from Supervisor Ellenberg, a report that I developed and drafted by bringing together the Department of Parks and Recreation and the Consumer and Environmental Protection Agency, and which resulted in the Board of Supervisors adopting a new environmental stewardship goal number 12 for streams and riparian corridors. And the Office of Sustainability's support on electrification reach codes provided to Bayrin, Silicon Valley Clean Energy, and the Department of Planning and Development's Building Division, as well as my work on the recent referral for building electrification reach codes brought forward by Supervisor Cortese. We're happy to take any questions you may have.
Thank you. I appreciate that report, Susan. Supervisor, no questions? I don't have any questions either. Thank you very, very much for that report. Appreciate that. We don't have any speaker cards either, so we'll consider that item received, which does not require a motion.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, and thank you. Susan.
And before they leave, Supervisor Wasserman to your left, I wanted to take a moment to acknowledge Susan Gilbert Miller. It is likely that this will be her last presentation to the committee. We're in a process to...
Oh, then I have several very difficult questions, Ms. Smith.
And I wanted to publicly acknowledge her great leadership and sustainability. It is tough work.
Truly.
You want someone who's reasonable. The departments always appreciate someone who recognizes their place at the table. And she's done, tremendous amount of work to advance, the sustainability agenda. And when we hired her, I said to her, you were very lucky because not only do we have to the member a board that is committed to sustainability, but you marry that with resources and a desire by our board to be leaders on every area in a national scale is something that is cherished when you have a career in government. So I wanted to thank you.
Wonderful. Great job. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And I, in turn, want to acknowledge this county, the Board of Supervisors, and the incredible colleagues, and Sylvia Gallegos, who I've had the honor and the privilege to be able to work with. It's been an amazing experience, and I really appreciate all of you.
Thank you.
Keep up the good work in sustainability and climate defense.
We will. Thank you. All right, with that, we'll move on to item number 7, which is to receive a report from SEPA relating to a 5-year extension of agreement with Green Waste Recovery. And Supervisor, you want to combine 7 and 8 in our discussion?
Well, I think we can do them separately, but just because I think they are 7, 7's ready to go. I just have one question, and that is that on item number 7, there's language that I wanted to just understand a little bit better. It says on page 2 of 3 in the staff report, which is packet page 32, for those of us working from that packet document, there would be no ratepayer impact for exercising the extension. Now, does that mean that the rate that people currently pay will be the rate that they continue to pay for the following 5 years?
Yes, I can answer that, Supervisor Simitian. And I also wanted to introduce Christina McCaffrey, who was our lead negotiator on this effort. She's a manager at SEPA. The contract would just continue as it does now with the annual cost of living adjustment that we have, but no special adjustment associated with this rate.
So, and I was going to say, yeah, I don't want to debate semantics, but I guess maybe I do. So there is going to be an increase every year because there will continue to be a CPI increase, which is already in the contract, yes?
That is correct. Some years don't go up because the rates are contingent on fuel, and when fuel goes down, some years go down.
They don't ever get less, do they?
They can get less if
Can
the
they?
CPI goes down.
Have they, well, no, I mean, if we're charging somebody $20 and the CPI was at some low level, do we ever charge them less than $20, or does it just stay at the level it's at? Do you understand the question I'm trying to ask here?
Yeah, we apply whatever the current CPI is. So if it's a negative, it'll be a negative to the rate.
Has that ever happened?
Not to my knowledge in this term, in the last 5 years.
Okay. So just because, and these are going to be, I think, mostly Mr. Wasserman's constituents, but just because I want to make sure that we're giving accurate information to the public. So there will be an increase, we expect, since traditionally, historically, there's at least a modest increase in CPI most, if not every year. Yep?
Correct.
Got it. That's all I wanted to know. Thanks, Mr. Wasserman.
Thanks. And there is a term for that when it goes out. We want to avoid it, no additional cost. We want to say it's something to the effect that nothing beyond CPI or nothing, whatever. I know when I sit on the Water District, for instance, they talk about, well, we'll raise rates 5%, 10%. They're picking specific percentages, and we're not doing that. But to the supervisor's point, we are leaving in whatever we currently have allowed. So no additional surcharge, there's some term there that would make sense and I think be more transparent. I would also like to acknowledge the work done by SEPA and Christina, especially you, as Joe brought out, for your negotiating the extensions with Green Waste and for promoting the establishment of consumer protection fees so that food providers follow state regulations and allow them flexibility wherever possible and to ensure safe and sanitary conditions. I think what you've accomplished recently as we go into this next term is extraordinary and extremely pro-citizen, pro-consumer, and at the same time brings in conditions that are very favorable, very popular, and very healthy. Really, really is. So thank you for a great job.
Thank you, Supervisor Wasserman. I did want to provide one update. We mentioned in our staff report that the final contract the county has for solid waste services for East Unincorporated County were under negotiations, and we were able to conclude those negotiations on Friday. It's been an 11-month process with very similar terms to the Green Waste Agreement and no special one-time adjustment in consideration for the extension.
Super, super. Thank you. Thank you all. Very well job. Supervisor, with that, we can consider 7 received.
Please.
Thank you. We'll move on to item number 8. And again, anyone wishing to speak on this item, not already wearing a county tag? Nope. Item number 8. Come on forward. Joe, again, your department.
Yeah. Thank you. This is kind of a cleanup action, these fee changes. We've had some additional fee categories established by state law, including a charitable feeding category for our fees in Department of Environmental Health. And then we had some fees that only allowed us to charge one rate, and we found some of our services in checking plans, for example, for kitchens, we're requiring less work for less complicated plans, so we wanted to be able to have an option of charging lower fees for services that required less staff time. So that's what these fees changes are about. There's no fee increases. It's establishing new fees and allowing us to be more flexible.
So new fees and some decreases. Yeah. And before we turn to you, I have a card. Trina, it's on 7, but I'll consider 7 and 8 very similar. And come on down. You've got a couple of minutes to speak on this item. Or on 7, whatever you wish.
Trina Heinzer, the San Martin Neighborhood Alliance. I did want to first and foremost thank Supervisor Wasserman and the Green Waste Recovery for their assistance and continued support of our annual Trash Bash events, which is actually this Saturday. So if
8:30 in the
anybody wants to
morning.
come pick up trash in San Martin, come on down. But I also wanted to point out something that Supervisor Smidian stated, which was in respect to the increases. I've been a resident of San Martin for a long time. We do see the annual, increases, which is fine. But since Green Waste came on board, prior to that, we had Recology, which is the local place right in San Martin, and we would pay somewhere around $50 or $60 every 3 months. When it changed to Green Waste, we were paying about that every 3 months. Then after the first year, it changed to every 2 months. Do the math. Then all of a sudden there was an increase, and instead of being offered the 64-gallon sized trash container, it was reduced to a 32 sized trash container. Additionally, as the next year proceeded, instead of receiving 2 Green Waste cans for free, we get 1 green can waste for free, and the other one is $10. Do the math. So I am suggesting, especially for your unincorporated individuals, we have a tremendous amount of green waste, and to be charged an extra $10 every 2 months to have to drive it on 101 and take it all the way to Kirby is not a good choice for a lot of the residents, and most of the residents will not do it. Recology has been very kind to a lot of us that have been there for a long time, and when we carry our green waste over to them, they let us in for free. But I would suggest that you look at possibly how to help the unincorporated area, specifically when it comes to green waste, because the additional charge is
Thank you, Trina.
excessive.
And
Thank you.
if I'm correct, did Recology even bid the contract?
Recology just bid for the East
Yeah,
District.
Trina, just so you know, they didn't even bid to provide service to South Kent, so there was nothing else to go with. Yep, thank you. All right, thank you. Any further comments? Nope, Supervisor Smidian.
On item number 8, the fee adjustments and proposed new fees.
Yes.
I have an interest in building on the good work that's already been done. So, Mr. Chairman, the staff know, because they've been kind enough to meet with me and my staff, I have had a concern in recent years about what are sometimes referred to as charitable feeding operations. And it will hearken a little bit to the conversation we had about, could we just get practical here about what it's going to take to help people. And so, we've been in a position where our staff, following state law, has felt they have to tell community groups, church folks, no, you cannot provide food to hungry people. That's a less than ideal set of circumstances. And I'm getting some quizzical looks from folks who haven't been inside those conversations. The reason that they have to say, no, you cannot provide food to hungry people is because they don't have a commercial kitchen. And in the absence of having a commercial kitchen, they were told to stop. And just as recently as within the last few weeks, I had lunch with a pastor who told me, we can't really even do a potluck anymore because a potluck is, not consistent with the requirements of state law. Something is lost when we can't do that. Hopefully we're gaining something in the way of public safety, and I am the food safety warrior on our board, so I own that. But we now are going to be in a position, we hope, I'm looking to staff, to accommodate a little bit more with charitable feeding operations, because as I understand it, with this relatively modest fee of $99, if I got it right, people will be able to serve at their non-commercial kitchen venues if the food was actually prepared in a qualified commercial kitchen. Did I get that right?
Yes, thank you, Michael Ballier. That is correct, and there are other options available as well that we talk with folks about, such as the food recovery so perfectly edible food that may be donated. And that is also consistent with some of the solid waste legislation that has been making its way through the pipeline, and it's called SB 1383. It's a landmark legislation in California, but it pairs very nicely with food recovery operations.
And did I understand you correctly, Mr. Ballier, because these terms of art are sometimes not familiar to me at least. Food recovery means somebody who would otherwise throw out perfectly good food is just going to say, why don't we take it to the homeless shelter? Yeah.
Basically, that's correct.
Okay. So here's the issue that I'd like us to see if we can help a little bit more with Mr. Wasserman, and that is this is a step in the right direction in my judgment. It eliminates a very big impediment to people doing good work in their communities, but it does create another impediment, which is it used to be you'd spend some money for food and you'd take it to your non-commercial kitchen and you'd then provide it to people who needed the food. Can't do that under the law. Now you have to go to the commercial kitchen where you'll not only have to spend some money for the food, but presumably you're going to have to pay somebody a rental fee to use the commercial kitchen in most cases. Am I getting that right, Mr. Ballier?
It depends on the level of food preparation. So what we call low-risk foods, and I'll just throw it out there, things like hot dogs and chips and drinks and that sort of thing can be very easily be
Have you ever
made.
looked at the ingredients on that low-risk food?
I have.
Okay.
I have. I probably have eaten a few of those things. But I think the point is that there are some low-risk options available for those that have a commercial kitchen that does not meet commercial standards. And the idea being that we try to cater the menu towards what equipment they do have available. And so the legislation that we have now reflects that and was sort of a middle ground to try to figure out how we can work with folks much more proactively.
Here's what I'd like to do in addition to actually receiving the report, which is the only thing we're being asked to do. I don't think this is so much a planning function or an environmental health function as it is a part of our efforts to deal with poverty and homelessness in the county. So I'd like to ask that generic resource that we call county staff to come back to us with some thoughts about how we might set aside funding for folks who want to access commercial kitchens in order to be able to serve community needs through their non-commercial kitchens. I have more involvement with this issue than I ever thought possible because of the Hope and Mercy Resource Center at the Trinity United Methodist Church, where we have a North County homeless shelter, and they now have a commercial kitchen. But it was, Mr. Wasserman, you may have known this, but the cost of a commercial, and we're not talking about like, let's go raise $100,000. We're, into the $500,000 plus range. And so I think what that means is a lot of people are still not going to have commercial kitchens. They'd still like to do the good work. They're going to have to go to commercial kitchens, and there's usually going to be a cost associated with that. And so I'm trying to figure out how to fill that missing gap. And again, don't want to create a big bureaucracy around it. Maybe it's a pilot project, but I'll look to Ms. Gallegos to work with whoever and county staff to work with whoever the appropriate parties are to maybe come back to this committee and share some thinking on that in the future, Mr. Wasserman, if that's agreeable.
Yes, I'm looking forward to where Brussels sprouts rate on that list.
So I know we all are. Happy to move.
That's a good idea.
Move receipt. Thank you. Move receipt of that, and but with the direction of staff to come back and talk about how to close the gap. It would be the way I would describe it. Okay.
And I will say we've come a long way with the committee that I sit on, as far as getting the refrigerated truck. I mean, my first couple of years, it was so frustrating, all this food that was available to be picked up and transported from people with excess to people with the need. And a refrigerated truck didn't exist, and the county made that happen. And that's a huge ongoing program now. And there are still tons of mouths to feed and tons of food being wasted. So I join in his support of trying to increase our efforts. But at the same time, I'll also share how proud I am of what we've accomplished in the last 4 or 5 years in this area. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor, we handled 9 through 16 through consent, leaves us to adjournment, which is 17, to our October 17th meeting. in this same location at 10 a.m. Thank you very much.
Thank
Meeting
you.
adjourned.